Hello and welcome to Boldly Watch. Today we are discussing an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Is that what we had scheduled?
Like we do every night, Pinky. Try and talk about Star Trek.
Yay, guys! Happy recording day.
Happy recording day, Becca.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I need it. I need the distraction.
For sure. This was a distraction, let me tell you.
It was.
Was it?
It was sort of a departure from the norm in any way.
Becca and I were talking about this because she thought Monday was Tuesday on Monday, and so she started watching the episodes. No judgment.
Yeah.
But she was like,
preparation.
I was like, how's it going? She's like, nothing's really happened, and I'm halfway through. And then when I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, not a lot really happens until halfway through.
Yeah.
It very much reminded me of classic Twilight Zone episodes. There was very little sound design, or the sound design was intentionally very silent. Maybe because silence is in the title of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 2, where silence has lease.
Nice. Did you just segue yourself? That's right. It's where silence has lease. When an alien traps the Enterprise and threatens to kill half the crew purely out of curiosity, Captain Picard is faced with a grim decision.
But wait until 40 minutes in to meet this nemesis.
Well,
with a real baby face. It reminds me of that like Snapchat filter people were using.
Snapchat filter or a kid who gets their face painted at a carnival.
You're aging yourself so hard right now. So it's this TikTok filter where
there it is. That's how we sound. Yeah.
No, I think that's why we get the action sort of in the cold open too, because maybe they realize there's not so much action for a while.
Can we talk about just the cold open for 40 minutes, actually?
It's so funny because I did take a lot of notes about the cold open. Most especially like even just the first second where Picard just comes out of his personal ready room and he's like, I forgot why I came in here. What I thought it looked like. Yeah. And then like Patrick Stewart does a full like minute of worried acting, sits down, and then Troy's like, you're worried.
Yeah, it's like you know
that acting. You don't call it out.
Why were they? Why did Picard even know that Worf and Riker were what we find out is our first holodeck of the season? They were doing Worf's training.
I like to think that Picard and Riker have like synced their calendars and they sort of update each other. And Riker's like, I got this big duel coming up with Worf and I'm training and I'm nervous. And he's like, don't worry, number one, you'll be fine.
They also, share a Google Calendar. That's cute. That's the next level of a relationship.
Yeah.
They also share like an 8-hour shift on the bridge. So I'm sure like
There's
during the moment
to talk about.
Like, so we're working out tomorrow? And Picard's like, oh, you guys are working out tomorrow? They just didn't show that part of the episode.
There's a lot that happens on the bridge.
I'm really proud of where Star Trek is going, but I'm just sick of this product placement and this like blatant grab with the Nintendo Power Glove that Worf.
Whoa!
It's just too much, you know? It's too much.
Yeah, I wrote Metal Embellished Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah.
You know what? Now that you mention it, it's definitely the Nintendo Power Glove.
I wrote Spiked Oven Mitt.
Oh, that's correct. That's the most correct. Yeah, and oven mitts were really pushing for a resurgence. You know, get their sales up.
Yeah.
The music of that scene and all the fight choreography and the costumes of I'm going to call them monsters, even though they are alien species. They're monsters. Was very reminiscent of the original series, right? It was definitely like a planet, an away mission fight between Kirk and some Gorn captain.
That kind of monster right there on your background.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I was also criticizing it pretty hardly, but then I'm like, it's the holodeck. I'll allow it. Like, maybe Worf programmed this. In that case, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and it was fun. Like, I still like enjoyed it.
Yeah, and those weapons that they're using are definitely LARP and boffer weapons because we have them.
Tell everybody what a boffer weapon is.
So it's a foam weapon. These specifically
for boffing.
For boffing. Boffers are normally thicker for like fake sword fighting and hitting.
Bop is to bop, but without harming.
Correct. Yeah. Well, yeah.
I wouldn't consider a bop harmful to begin with.
well, then you didn't play Bop It with the intensity that the rest of us did.
Excellent
Twist
point.
it.
I have
take back my comment.
So yeah, Worf shows Riker one of his less intense calisthenic routines.
Yeah.
That was a great cap on that scene. It's like,
Right.
yeah, no, usually they're much more personal intense. And then we go right into the credits.
The only button that was there. You had to take it. Worf really showed his wild man with his hardy crawl and his blow-dried puffy hair.
Yeah.
He was also like going full barbarian mode and like about to attack Riker, which I thought was a little out of character from what we know of him so far. Is that a Klingon rage thing I don't know about, Xander?
Yes, I would like to rage. I think we're pulling off of, at this point, Worf is still relatively unknown, like, to the viewers. We've got these years of knowing him as, like, maybe he's a cuddly teddy bear of a Klingon, but they're still operating off of the mentality from original series, and where Klingons were sort of one of the main bad guys. So I think they were trying to show he's wrestling with this nature of wild violence, and he's wrestling it down. But then you kind of remember he was raised by humans, so then is this nature nurture? So
he definitely has an animalistic quality because of the growling combined with like the just ferocity of everything, right?
I think my real theory is that they just got new prosthetic teeth and they just really wanted to show off his close-ups.
He did have great teeth.
He's had those the whole time.
But I think
maybe they yellowed him a little more or something.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
So we move on from the holodeck, and we find a very exciting thing in space, which is a lack of space. It is known as, I guess, a void or just a black spot. We do some funny.
We know about wormholes, but this isn't that.
Right.
And like, I even love how he describes it. Data's like, "There's just nothing there," and Picard pauses and goes, "On screen." I'm like, "Oh, that's I want to see nothing."
Well, that's like someone saying, like, "Don't touch it, it's hot," and you're like, "Oh, really?" And then you touch the thing.
Hand it to me is what the command would. Yeah, and we see, which is actually more than just a lack of space. There is like a shadow of some sort, and we see an image that lacks dimension. And we spend, I think, the first act of the entire episode just trying to figure out how to define the thing.
Well, and Picard doing more and more of touching the hot thing. Wow, our probe just got devoured. Huh, this reminds me of an old Klingon legend of a giant black space creature that devours vessels. Get a little closer. Go right up to the edge.
Also,
Go ahead.
I think this is a great example of showing Starfleet's sort of arrogance, too, and hubris, because they spend all this time floating out in space, untouchable, thinking they're the peak of technology. And it's sort of Starfleet's mission to go where no one has gone before. So, it's both the mission protocol of like, we're an exploration vessel, let's go explore. And also, hey, our security officer said a pretty ominous thing. Maybe we should listen to that.
But he undermined himself, too, right after that. He's like, but I am a Starfleet officer. I know that's not a very scientific thing to say. And then I was like, well, you guys, your first episode, you were like encountered by a godlike creature that decided all of your choices and put you in costumes.
They have a counselor that's very prominent on the bridge of the ship saying that intuition and feeling has a lot to offer scientifically, even if it can't be explained.
Also, a puddle of blackness took out the last security officer. Just saying.
When the next security officer is cautious of a black puddle, maybe be wary.
You have a good point, Becca. Like, Troy is pretty pivotal. Troy is pretty pivotal.
Pitiable.
Pivotal. Troy is pretty. Oh,
Potable?
boy. Troy is pretty.
I'll drink that up.
But yet she kind of disappears for half the episode, actually. I don't know if you noticed, but when Pulaski's on the ship, like, she's not there half the time, and I don't know why.
No, there's a real reason. There's a woman already there, you see.
Yeah, she was
elaborate?
Her question, wasn't she?
Yeah. Oh,
Pulaski
I think
got thrown to the side, and it's like, I think it's because you're a lady.
Yeah, and then did not acknowledge or name Troy when this baby face Snapchat TikTok filter said everyone's name. It just knew all of their names through Dr. Popo, whatever.
Pulaski.
I can't remember that. I want to put an in there, and you got mad at me.
You can do it.
Dr. Pole.
Yeah.
And then like never calls out Troy or mentions the fact that she is also this strange variation from the norm, which again is the thing that is the whole problem with patriarchy, is that male is considered the default and she's the other, instead of, wow, look, there are two types of beings on this bridge, or, two variations.
Just to further intensify that, the difference between a male human and female human is more, like, stands out more to this thing than a half betazoid
or a Klingon.
Or a Klingon. Like what do you mean that's the difference? Gender is a construct, everybody.
You have
construct.
boobies.
Yeah, you're wearing a scant uniform. Though I do love her variation on it. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's very professional, right?
Describe, because I don't have eyes.
Oh, Pulaski's uniform, it's sort of, instead of a doctor's coat, it has this sort of like belt that cinches, and it's the scant uniform. But it's in like the science blues. It's really cool.
And she has like pants on underneath that too, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty cute.
Like almost the power suit of the Starfleet uniform, like pretty close, right?
Yeah. Welcome to my Pulaski fan cast, where we talk about Captain Pulaski.
So let's see, how does this even go? Like what happens next? We launch probes until the very thing that Worf warned us about comes true, which is that we become enveloped. And it's funny because Worf is like, well, the legend is it devours ships. And then when we get devoured, no one points out that we just got devoured.
They're like, oh, enveloped.
That's crazy, Worf.
Yeah.
But the black hole comes to meet the ship. They get up right close to the edge, and then that's the sound of a devouration.
One thing I do like is that as soon as they were in like real danger, Wesley is off the bridge, and they actually get a Starfleet officer then, and we get the gift of an amazing Haskell.gif.
Not only is it a great GIF, it's like our first red shirt casualty that we've kind of had in this traditional way.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I wrote down hello, Haskell. Goodbye, Haskell. And
I was
I don't know. I was bothered by the fact that it's a black actor. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, kill the black man that you immediately introduced. I mean, I know there's other black men on this bridge right now. It just, I didn't like it.
Right.
I want Haskell back.
I didn't like it either.
But when he died, he took a big inhale of air, and I saw his nostrils flare. So that was the take they chose to use of him being dead. So
that was a bummer.
I felt better.
Flare was definitely a real miss.
If you get the day part and your job is to die, he died, and it was great. And also, he had this sort of like weird attitude on the bridge that I don't. It was a weird sort of energy. That
what do you mean?
When he was talking to Picard, there was some, I don't know, conflict of like, but Captain, like he kept on questioning every order, even though it was, a dire situation.
It was his first day as an ensign on the bridge. He's like, I gotta finally do it. I get to drive, and that 16-year-old kid doesn't get to take my position again.
Yeah.
The old doctor's kid doesn't mean he always gets bridge duty. He's like stuck in a maintenance closet somewhere most of the time.
Just in command reds, just like, I'm ready. Put me in, coach.
So we launch probes, we get enveloped, and then we do some beacon shenanigans. We try and drop a beacon astern and then fly away from it, and then it turns out, oh, guess what? It's just right in front of us again.
Now, this was some powerful sound design, hearing the bleep of the beacon as it slowly gets quiet, but then it gets louder again, and oh my god, now it's in front of us when it was to our stern!
It's such an old-fashioned beacon that it has to still beep as if we're not in the silence of space and we're really just getting a signal. Like there's no auditory. We're in a vacuum.
Right. This was.
No one told the sound designer.
I don't know if this was also during the writer's strike, but this very much seemed to me like they took like Twilight Zone or even like a Doctor Who script and sort of was like, but what if it was in space with technology? You know what I mean? So. And also, they went back. They did not do their A plot B plot format, which we had become accustomed to. Which may be why it felt so drawn out and long, because it was
why we felt like a fly trapped in amber of the void.
Yeah.
So the writer's strike had ended. So this is the first episode with a completely original script after the strike.
Wait, for sure? Because, I mean, I'm still on... They should just call it. It was still part of the writer's strike. There is very little that happens in this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I think I actually like what this episode could have been because it is an interesting premise. They just kind of wandered around and asked questions without answering them for half of it, which I think they could have brought that down to one act and then had a lot of fun with being toyed with as rats in a lab, because that's a really interesting concept of having to escape from a lab by convincing the scientists you aren't worthy of experimentation.
Right.
Like, that's a great concept, but we really don't get that until Act 5, and the way of getting out of it is to kill ourselves, which we'll talk about that. But that was a very grim thing to happen over the course of 7 minutes of episode time.
Yeah, that was a wild choice for Picard to make. No, he wants to kill 50% of our staff just so he can view each and every version of death. Nah, we'll just kill everybody instead. And the whole crew's like, what?
That announcement where everybody has to realize what he's saying. He's like, anyway, we don't want to be experimented on, so I'm nuking ourselves.
Like, okay.
It's a Picard thing to do, but not a rational thing to do.
Right.
Well,
let's just being fair.
Let's go in order of this, because a bunch of things happen that don't immediately get solved, but they just kind of encounter, such as the Romulans appear. We destroy the Romulans with one hit. Seems a little easy. The USS Yamato appears, which I believe is just another Enterprise, right? Another Galaxy-class ship.
Right. And we see, again, the elements of that horror episode, or they try, with Worf trying to comprehend multiple dimensions.
Yeah, and, speaking of sound design, Becca, when Riker gets on board the ship for the first time, there's like these eerie, it's before the screams, but like there's these eerie, haunting like strings that happen in the background as well.
Nothing spookier than a stringed instrument.
Also, I wrote down, one Riker, one bridge.
Yeah, me too. So this is, again, like Worf is the barbarian of the D&D party. I feel like the bridge encounter with more bridges was like a dungeon master like trying to stall. It's like, I don't know what's in the next room. I'm just going to make it another of the same room. Yeah. Until everybody gets sleepy, and then I'll figure it out next week.
Right. And it was planned the whole time.
And then as they it's one of those good things as a dungeon master too, is like as the players start going in the same room over and over, they'll like make a theory as to what it is, and then you can be like,
good.
Hey, it's a collaborative storytelling experience. I'm saying for on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
It is whatever you think it is, Worf.
Yeah.
Riker's getting pissed because he's just sick of being toyed with. And maybe that's what the Riker-Worf bonding is happening right now in this episode, is like Riker kind of sees eye to eye with Worf in terms of Worf's frustration, because Worf is like raging through much of that bridge encounter for sure. Almost punches Riker again. He's like, just calm down.
You can't.
I don't know. They were trying to build their chemistry, but I don't see it. There wasn't much personal interaction happening between Riker and Worf. It was just like, rage, calm down, Commander.
I always have to take a step back too, because I'm like, maybe this is how straight guys bond. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, Jake, you'll have to attest, because Xander and I are just at a loss. Is this how it works?
They are probably like the cops that are in the background of a good cop buddy show, like the other cops that are solving the cases a little bit behind everybody. That's kind of Riker and Worf's vibe.
That makes sense.
Like Worf's got a copy saying he's cleaning it up in the background of the shot, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of their vibe. So we figure out, okay, there is an intelligence here. There is something much more vast, I believe it's described, and putting it all together. There's a lot of very vague terms in here.
Yeah. Well, Deanna's like, oops, you know what? Too big of an intelligence. That's why I had no idea to do my one job, which is to sense consciousness out there.
That's so true, Becca. She's like, whoops, I figured out the plot device. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and then we get fake Deanna later on, too, who is like, I should have mentioned this, but I forgot. So I think they were trying to set up as this is something that could feasibly happen. Sometimes she makes mistakes or,
So the 20 minutes where we were just sitting on the bridge, just staring at this black hole, we could have been doing all kinds of shenanigans of body snatchers and intimating being other crew members.
Yeah.
Would have been super fun, because that was a great scene where Deanna Troi and Data both confront Picard in his quarters, I guess, saying, hey, you know what's crazy? Killing everyone on the ship, which seems like what we would think is a rational thing for those characters to say, but no, Picard knows better. They would never question his ultimate moral authority that he is Big Daddy Picard that knows what's best. And so he's like, no. Where is Data on the bridge? Knew it. And then they ominously stare at him. It's great.
Yeah.
And they call him Jean-Luc.
Ooh, yes. Which makes sense for Troy.
Right.
If they're in their personal quarters, she would call him Jean-Luc. I felt that. But when Data mimics it, I thought as a viewer, Data's just trying to appeal to Picard and seeing it and emulating because of picking up on the human cues that like, in this scenario, I guess it's okay to call him Jean-Luc. Jean-Luc knows better.
See, I fell for it. I was like, this is a poorly written scene. And then as soon as you said Jean-Luc, I was like, Data's trying a tactic. He's like trying to empathize because he wants to talk him down. And then it happened. I was like, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess it did seem like there was a writer for that scene. See, I think this was half writer strike, half not.
I think that I'm not even saying the scene was necessarily poorly or well written. I'm just saying I fell for it because I'm like trying to look so hard into the writing of the scene instead of living in it. You know what I'm saying? I probably would have noticed it if I was paying more attention to the story instead of overanalyzing it.
Well, my overanalysis of it was I had forgotten what had happened. I knew that something was up, but I thought that they had control of Deanna because of her psychic awareness and Data because of his machine capabilities. I thought that was the angle, but no, they were just projections.
Now, if what the being wanted was to study death and they gave them 100% deaths, wouldn't that be what they wanted?
It was the variation.
Yeah.
And the reaction of and how they respond to
Trick question. You guys got it right.
Well, I mean, we didn't really
I'm not Becca.
I mean, the being, we just kind of have to assume what he really wants, which I don't think he necessarily wanted death. He just wants to experiment and he wants to learn things. And so when things fly into his void, he just experiments with them, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, can we really fault it for that curiosity? Isn't that a human trait?
It is.
They share.
Yeah. As every adolescent learns when they kill bugs or something, you know?
We did learn that the Enterprise is made of titanium.
Titanium.
Oh.
It has to be made up.
It's okay. It's okay, Becca. Don't be sad. It's titanium. Oh, did you want it to be titanium?
Yeah.
No. It's all right. This doesn't ruin anything.
No.
Okay. Her day is just
titanium.
Anything.
I failed the quiz.
Listen, there is no tritanium. There's only deutanium.
Sorry, jumping around. But back to Dr. Popo on the bridge when Haskell dies.
Right.
Crusher would have brought him back.
Yeah.
Just
yeah,
saying.
we never make much of an effort for the extras or one-time guest stars.
But
Especially
Crusher has for sure brought people back to life.
Yes, Crusher. You know what? We can't all be Beverly Crusher, okay? But Dr. Pulaski is wonderful in her own way.
Yeah, if only Wesley was there to say my mom could have done it.
That would have been very good and so mean-spirited.
Speaking of mean-spirited, Pulaski says something like, "Why do I get the feeling that now is not the time to join this ship?"
She's right.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'd be pissed too. But nobody could say anything to Picard unless they're not in their own body.
It feels like a rushed solution of like, all right, well, I guess Picard will just gambit to kill them all because he doesn't want to be reduced to be an experimentation. So then they have this very awkward conversation between Riker and Picard of like, how much time is enough time to die?
Well, I pose the question to you guys. If you were setting the auto-destruct sequence and you were going to alert the entire ship, which reacts very calmly, in my opinion, how much time would you give them?
I think this was the right call because there were no other options. This was an extreme choice, and it's a hard choice, and Picard had to make it. And it was through the lens of understanding that he was bluffing. And the whole you could sort of surmise that the whole ship was sort of on board on this bluff plan and knew they had to go along with it in order to have it be successful, which is why we see this sort of
Did
going
they
along
know
with
that?
it.
Did they know? Because on the bridge, everybody's staring at Picard as the countdown gets closer to 0 and freaking out.
They weren't freaking out enough for my preference, though. I was freaking out more than they were, thinking like, you have 20 seconds now. Oh, and originally it was 20 minutes that was set for the countdown. And then they're on the bridge, 20 seconds left, and everybody's like eyes wide staring at him. But I would be screaming, call it off already, Picard!
But he makes a good point, because we previously had this scene with characters that were simulations. He could not be sure that the simulation had ended when it seemed like it ended. So this was the only way that the bluff would work, is if you pushed it right to the last possible moment, so that the enveloping creature really thought an explosion was going to happen and he was going to lose everything to call off the illusions.
So I would have probably
take two people to both initiate and to call off the auto-destruct. And Riker decides to respond to, do you really want to cancel this auto-destruct? Yes, definitely. I do. Unquestionably. Call it off.
Wholeheartedly.
The computer can't respond till you finish speaking.
So then I reversed course at that point, thinking, oh, this isn't bad writing. We're still in this simulation, because Riker wouldn't talk like that. That's a fake Riker.
That would have been a good pivot at the end.
Yeah, right? And like, if Riker steps into the ready room and then he is that and he tells him good job or whatever, like instead of that weird monitor scene that we have where Picard's just talking to his computer.
Yeah.
Like, so I probably, to answer your question, Becca, I probably only would have given the crew 60 seconds, mainly because it's such a heavy thing, and like they know what they signed up for when they got here. So it's like, we're going to do this now before he has a chance to experiment on us.
Right? Because what the thing never said, I will begin my experiment in 30 minutes.
Right. Yes. Additionally, it's like at minute 16, people are going to lose their shit. And I don't really want that to happen when we still have 4 more minutes to go. So I'd prefer to just get it done with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It was a bit clunky.
Could your bluff have bluffed its way out? Would it have had time to resolve?
I don't know if I would have been bluffing. I think if we're actually talking about the real predicament here, right? Of if we have to actually blow up the ship, how much time do we give them?
Okay,
I mean, if we're bluffing,
I need to never step foot on your starship.
Yeah, very different captaining style.
You put me in the hypothetical.
Yeah, and it was a test if I will get on your starship.
Yeah.
I didn't get into Starfleet Academy now, huh? This is a psychological thing. Now I got to wait till next year. No,
you got into the Academy. I'm just not going to be your crew.
But this is a great point, because a lot of the testing that is in Starfleet are unwinnable scenarios. That's sort of the whole thing. And especially with the original series and Kirk's whole mantra of like, there are no unwinnable scenarios. So this is just another sort of experimentation of like, what are the other options that are really outside of the box? Blowing up the whole ship. That's one of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that was the one, and I mean, we can surmise on one of the other options they could have come up with, but like it's weird that he just decided instead of losing a few people, we're going to lose everybody.
It could also be justified with, we don't want tech to get into alien hands. We don't want.
I mean, he bargains so much with other enemies throughout the whole series, and he has in the past before of like, I'll give myself up, or
I thought we were going to get one of those.
Yeah. Some people on the saucer section will come over to you, and we will willingly do it. But the civilians and the children, they're going to go on the legs and retreat back out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be me and the volunteers we choose will let you kill us. You can bring us back to life and kill us over and over.
Don't give him ideas, Becca. You can torture us as much as you want. Have you heard of waterboarding? We'll send you the data. It's like, no.
But we also have this massively powerful holographic simulation that can show you any death you wish.
Yeah. There you go. Why not just show him TV / the holodeck, right?
Problem solved.
Well, Picard's got to come up with a 1-up quick, and all he had was murder everyone. It's one of those days. We haven't talked about the fact that the big bad with the baby face is named Nagilum.
You want to know where that name comes from?
Yeah.
Yes.
The original actor that they had cast to play Nagilum is actually, his last name was Mulligan, which is Nagilum backwards.
Whoa, it's a Voldemort situation.
Yeah. Richard Mulligan was.
Yeah.
Richard Mulligan. All right. Well, Mulligan is a do-over. So,
well, they actually got Earl Bowen to do it. Do you guys know who Earl Bowen is? You would recognize his face. He's been in a lot of like 90s movies. He was in, I mean, I remember him mostly from Terminator 2. If you look up Earl Bowen, EARLBOW or BOEN.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
And I recognized his voice. I was like, who is that? And then you look it up. It's like, oh, yeah, it's the guy who has the hyperdermic needle cap in his mouth and drops the T-1000 come through the bars of T2. It's an icon. Right, Becca?
I'm working on getting a screen share to the people, the fine people of the YouTube watchings.
There you go.
Here's Mr. Bowen.
And that's actually, I think, a shot from Terminator 2.
And also, he is LeChuck in Monkey Island, which I recently played through on Twitch.
Oh.
A very good voice.
Bring it together. Twitch.tv/Xanderific.
Thank you. Yeah.
2 hours, 1F.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to point out. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to chat about the existential conversation about human nature that Nagilum and Picard have at the end of the episode.
Wait, I don't want to get away from this, that you get off easy on the moral question. How long would you give the entire ship to die?
3 seconds.
Okay, there we go. That's the right answer. If you're going to do something, Deutanium.
I mean, Deutanium. Yeah. Look, I'm an impulsive person and I can't meddle around. We're doing a thing, we're doing it.
What about the conversation between?
I don't know. Remind me. I forgot what he said. He was like, would you like, because I know you're a curious being, how about I tell you some things that I've learned about humans? And then I blacked out. I made Xander do a spit take.
He says, humans, quote, seem to find no tranquility in anything. You struggle against the inevitable. You thrive on conflict. You are rash, quick to judge, slow to change. It's amazing you survived. As a species, we have no common ground. You're too aggressive, too hostile, too militant.
Wow, I see why I blacked out. This is horrible. It's what makes me so afraid of what's happening in the news today, which we don't need to talk about. But yep, that's why I blacked out.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like, yeah, a lot of human beings are militant, and historically we have been. And so, like, that's not an unfair assessment. It's probably why Picard doesn't counter him, even though a lot of the Federation/Starfleet's goals are non-militaristic and more diplomatic and exploratory in nature. They actually are very hostile and very aggressive at times as well. The fact that they have no common ground, I'm surprised Picard didn't call him on that, though.
Well, he did at the end, just saying that we have a curiosity. But, but I do think that this is also interesting of a motif that we saw with Q as well. It's sort of, we get a bird's eye view of, we like go around in our starships and we see other races and other worlds and but when we are the subject of the experimentation, they come to the same conclusions, that human beings are rash, they're militaristic, they're unpredictable, and they're right. And so I think that's why it's so important we have things like the Prime Directive or whatever, these different rules or set of standards that's for Starfleet, because the rest of the galaxy thinks that we're this insane, virus that's spreading around conquering otherwise.
I don't disagree.
My question is, though, tread over this ground already with Q? Like, didn't we already accomplish this already? Like, you make a good point, Xander. They reached the same conclusions that humans have already reached. So then why are we doing this again? And it's technically like a lesser version of a Q episode, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's like writers coming to the same conclusion and going, I'm about to blow your mind right now. What if humans were the bad guys?
Does Nagilum have anything that differentiates it from Q?
Well, I mean, they make it to be more of like a experimenter, quote unquote, and play like Q plays games and experiments with people's reactions all the time. He kills crew members and gauges reactions. He does that. So like, there's not a huge difference in there, but like, I guess it's not as he's not John Delancey and like smarming it up the whole time and coming in with period costumes.
He could be. They could be if they wanted to.
Yeah, we don't know if that is wearing a Revolutionary War jacket. He could be.
Yeah, right. Maybe not materialize their own body, but then again, that other Federation ship was manifested out of nothing, so maybe they could.
And Troy and Data.
Very important and relevant to the topic at hand. I took a test and it says I'm 90% Q and 90% Riker.
I took the same one and I had a similar result.
I don't understand how this test works because I've seen this all over the internet, and we'll post a link to it on the description. But you can't do percentages that exceed 100.
Yeah.
Well, apparently we did.
It's the Star Trek quiz.
Yeah.
It seems that they are just a bunch of quizzes put into one that's testing you on your similarity to each of 6 different characters. 7.
I was 90% Crusher, 90% Q, and 80% Troy. So put them all together.
Oh, you're mostly Crusher. That's so sweet.
All I got was 40% Barkley. It was so weird.
So what this quiz is really about is mining your data, and they did that very successfully.
They got it.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's pronounced data, though.
I know.
Why do you even care? What is a name? You are a computer.
She did a thing about that too when he was at the helm. Magnify to 1,000%. Is he even capable of doing that?
Oh my god!
You're setting up again her skepticism, her like Bones versus Spock type of relationship with Data, of like her not believing that he can experience things the same way we can, right?
Yes.
Well, surely this will be put to rest soon, and they won't do more episodes about it.
No, I love it because that brings conflict and it brings conversation. Because
how human of you to want those things.
Yeah, it's true. Because up to this point, we've just had this easy society of everybody who's adjusted to replicators and the holodeck and this amazing technology, and now we see something that's giving them pause or an issue. And you can see that there is a sort of gap between someone who spends time with Data and who has just read about Data.
And it doesn't last. It doesn't solve itself in the episode. It's like an establishment of her character, and then they carry it over through episodes. So they want it to be an interpersonal dynamic that they have to solve. And I admire that too. I think from a writing standpoint, it's good to have a character with a thing we don't like about them, because we all know the audience is on Data's side in this. Yeah, and this new school marm who's telling us that he's not a person, right? But that's a great writing device to have. Also, because she is she fits in with the crew in other ways, in a lot of great ways. But this thing it makes her stick out.
A schoolmistress, typically used with reference to a woman regarded as prim, strict, and brisk in manner.
Not wrong. Yeah.
I'll take it. It's interesting, going back to Nagilum's interpretation of humanity, it's that we're never content with a constant. Happiness is found through the achieving of things, and we constantly need conflict to overcome in order to achieve happiness.
I love that.
Really interesting and sad thing about us.
That's a really great insight, though, and it's very true. Is like I was also reading recently about how the way we measure our happiness is happiness doesn't last if you get a good thing in one chunk. The size of it doesn't matter because it still only lasts for a certain amount of time. But if you have small happiness over lots of different periods of your life, that tends to last throughout, right? And it's how happiness, you know.
Yeah, well, the secret to that for most people is gratitude. So you can replicate that feeling of happiness by having gratitude over and over and reflecting on the experiences that you've had.
Yeah, and these last 20 minutes before we blow it.
This journal. Look at these. Look at these.
I have that too.
The Kyrgyzstan one? Really?
Yeah, but hold on. I'm going to go get it.
This Kyrgyzstan has gotten 3 different plugs on this podcast, I think.
Well, I bought swag. I couldn't help it. And it is a gratitude journal. I have not opened it yet because I'm not done with my current gratitude journal. Stop it! Xander has one too.
Just real great stuff for an audio podcast.
This is what the people love.
Yeah, I have
Jake
a
will
gratitude
cut
journal.
it out.
No, I'll probably keep it in. Did you guys notice Riker's finger guns towards the transporter chief on his way out?
No.
He gets it's one finger gun, but when Riker and Worf return from the Yamato, is it the Yamato or was it the
Yamada? And when there's one finger gun, there's always more.
But he doesn't have a line to give, so he just kind of gives them a nice job.
Well, that's the secret of good acting.
That might have been a Frakes thing.
You don't have a line. You use a gesture.
The other thing I noticed was I remember last week when we recorded our episode how confused I was with the title of this episode. Did you guys find out what this title comes from?
Where silence has lease.
Is it Shakespeare?
You're not close. It is poetry, is what it is.
T.S. Eliot.
I don't know if you'll guess it. It's Robert Service.
That's not a real person.
Whoa.
That's
They're a very talented poet.
No, Robert Service wrote a poem called "The Spell of the Yukon," which I read, and it's great. I will link it in the description as well. It is it's pretty much about someone who travels to Alaska to go find gold, but really the true treasure is nature of Alaska and the
friends we made along the way.
It's really the silence of the forest, right? So I'll read you actually just the last paragraph, which has the quote in it, which is, "There's gold, and it's haunting and haunting. It's luring me on as of old. Yet it isn't the gold that I'm wanting so much as just finding the gold. It's the great big broad land way up yonder in the forests where silence has lease. It's the beauty that thrills me with wonder. It's the stillness that fills me with peace."
Wow, I got goosebumps. That's really good.
And that goes to what you were saying, Xander, of like it's the experience, right, of learning. And so this is the same thing. He's like, we go up here to seek the gold. Well, it's the process of getting the gold that I love so much and being out here in this silent forest and enjoying the nature. That's
Amen.
So gratitude journal.
Yeah, I'm gonna write my gratitude journal about what I'm going to do if I encounter any holes.
You're gonna
Steer clear.
Close.
I will edit that together. I think I can edit that together. We didn't preview next week's episode, which I'll do real quick in case I need to like plug it in there. But before we head out, next week's episode is quite a doozy. It's Elementary Dear Data, the Enterprise.
Oh my God! Just the title. I know what to expect, and I'm excited.
The Enterprise is threatened when a character in Data and LaForge's holodeck simulation becomes sentient.
Wait, doesn't that happen every time?
Holodeck episodes, somebody's gaining sentience.
For sure.
And the safeties are coming off.
Why even put them on to begin with? They're never going to stay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go record our next episode.
Okay, well, let's remember. Steer
clear.
Okay, bye.